There's a lot of people watching our discussion online, and I'll give the floor to Serhiy Voskresenskyi, who is going to moderate our discussion. Good afternoon. So we gathered this round table with a major problem of reform in Ukraine's defense industry or industrial and defense complex. And I give the floor to the expert of the reforms, Reanimation Package of Reforms on the National Security and Defense, Valeriy Sadovskyi. Good afternoon, dear participants and dear press. Thank you, everybody who found an opportunity to come to this round table. We also invited many people from state structures. We also invited people from Ukroboronprom. We asked public activists and public society and experts. However, we have most of the participants in place, and we want to discuss the problem of reform in the industrial and defense complex, because this problem is very urgent today. It is urgent for the defense capacity of our state, and it is also urgent and topical for the supply of technology and arms men who are on the front. The society has a lot of questions work of the military-industrial complex, and I ask the participants in the round table to answer these questions, to answer the question what our defense industry is manufacturing, whether this is enough to provide for the defense capacity of our state, what is the quality of this produce, and what problems are there in the defense industry. And our second topic of discussion is going to be the reforming of Ukraine's defense industry. We want to discuss the issue of what the state has to do so that it does not damage the work of state-owned enterprises that are manufacturing their produce in this hard time, and to reinforce their capacity. The composition of our round table is such that I think we will be able to answer most of those questions. We have here the managers of the Ukroboronprom concern. We also have representatives of the parliament who are engaged in lawmaking activity. We have representatives from the industry, including non-state-owned enterprises. We have a representative from the Ministry of Defense, and we have experts. So I invite you to start to launch our roundtable, and we have 4 presentations planned, 2 on the activity of the industrial defense complex and 2 on the reforms. After every presentation we'll have 5 minutes of Q&As, and then discussion, and in the end we'll have 20 minutes for questions from mass media. Thank you. So the first to speak is going to be Romanov. He is the Chief Executive Officer, Director General at Ukroboronprom State Enterprise. First of all, I'd like to thank the Reanimation Package of Reforms, which is a civil initiative, because, you know, when I wanted for myself to get the definition who is the initiator of today's format, and to understand in this context what are the tasks of the initiators during this roundtable, you know, I saw the definition that the Reanimation Package of Reforms is a community of experts and public activists to move forward urgently needed reforms. And I understood that, yes, really, the problems that we raise here is resonant with the tasks that our state enterprise faces. For justice's sake, we should say that the military-industrial complex of Ukraine is not just Ukroboronprom, it is more than 160 industrial enterprises of Ukraine that form this military-industrial complex. And today, a very important task before us is to initiate the coordination of our joint activity, because you know, we used to have traditional partners who took part in industrial cooperation, manufacturing cooperation, and at the moment we're facing very serious tasks that should be solved. So the problems that we are raising today, I am grateful for the topic that we are looking at, and I think that in the course of this discussion we will really arrive at the message that's there in the very idea of the work of experts, the urgency of reforms. Yes, the society does need them. Thank you, everybody who is here. Thank you. Okay, let's start the first session of our roundtable, the state and the problems of the military-industrial complex. And the first to speak is going to be First Deputy Director General at Ukroboronprom, Serhiy Pinkas.
Good afternoon. We have agreed. There's not a report.
Those are going to be brief messages about what is the state of the military-industrial complex. As Mr. Romanov said, this is not just Ukroboronprom, but the problems are similar at every enterprise. So my first message is that a year ago, the Ukrainian defense industry was in the state of slow but irreversible dying out. They were moving away the material and technical equipment, all the developments that were initiated at the enterprises were not supported at the state level, and the way for the defense industry was just one, full extermination. If we take as a basis that Ukraine had very systemic positions on foreign markets about foreign market, we can say that in fact the trade was going in what was produced yet in Soviet times, and we did not have been producing or developing new technology after the Soviet times, and it was not also taken by the Ukrainian market. So the market for new technologies and new equipment and new armaments were unachievable for Ukraine. The occupation by Russian Federation of Crimea and parts of Donbass led to the loss of unique enterprises as far as shipbuilding is concerned, gunpowder, some ammunition, also the repair of helicopters. So the manufacturing complex that was created on the territory of Ukraine lost parts that were not to be replaced very soon. And there were several programs that existed in Ukraine about the development of the industrial and military complex, but there was no financing. If there was financing at all, it was very scarce. So there was no initiative on the part of the state about the strategic initiative of developing the military industrial complex in Ukraine for many, many years. The manufacturing capacities were not even summed up And after the breakup of the Soviet Union, every defense enterprise in Ukraine made their living as they could. And for instance, Ukroboronprom concern has 56 enterprises that had huge financial losses as a result of 2013. More than 20 enterprises were in the process of bankruptcy, and quite a number of enterprises, and we are looking into these facts today with law enforcers, were intentionally bankrupted. So the capacities and equipment were sold for a song, and some entrepreneurs and businessmen had started their own production activity not connected to the military-industrial complex. The systemic debts of those enterprises did not allow them to take part in tender procedures within the... Because, you know, if you have debts, then you cannot take part in procurement activity. And the so-called personnel hunger worked for the development of the industry, including defense industry in Soviet times, because they were not offered jobs, enough work, had to work in other spheres, and it is very difficult today to involve them back in the work for military-industrial complex. We also have to say that as such, the Ukroboronprom system was created 3 years ago, but you know, there was no such system before. All the enterprises were dispersed between various ministries and agencies, and depending on the personal rotation that was there, their concepts were absolutely different. So there was no single United States level policy about military-industrial complex. So these were the systemic problems that we faced when we started our work almost half a year ago. We developed a plan for ourselves, and we'll talk about this in the second part. Thank you, Mr. Pinkas.
Tell me, please, anybody has a question to this topic and to Mr. Serhiy? You spoke about problems at the moment when you came to Ukroboronprom, when your team came. What are the achievements? What are the issues? What's the state of defense industry? If we speak about the state of defense industry, the part which is not belongs to Ukroboronprom, experts will tell you about that. Our achievements are systemic. We report on them. Some of them. We changed at 25 enterprises, we changed the top management, and 13 of 25 became unprofitable. So this is a systemic level of corruption we had inside of those enterprises, and also in the country. And because of decisions related to the stuff, we solved those issues. And in our own cost, we covered more than 40 million debts, salary debts. People will work 20 hours a day if they are paid for them. We created more than 2,000 jobs, and those 2,000 jobs that are involved in production. Because in Ukraine there was no practice of visits or maintenance teams, and so we created such experience from zero. And in 2014, we set up 47 groups like that, maintenance groups. So when the equipment was repaired on the battlefield, or crews went, and that equipment was fixed in a very short time. If we speak about achievements again, we started when the task was to stop cooperation with Russia. And if we analyze the number of spare parts they supplied from Russia, that's 30,000 items. In half a year, we started to produce 11,000 of them in Ukraine, and in cooperation with private enterprises. And we have also plans for 2015. If we speak about the number of equipment produced, that number is more than 300 units, 300 wheels. There were days when President handed out equipment, and the number of equipment of vehicles was more than the number of vehicles provided to our armed forces during 10 years. Liquidations of staff hunger. We work for 4 months to employ people, and we have on our website people can leave their resume. And when we studied those resumes, we invited some people to work at our factories. We saved our intellectual potential of Luhansk and Donetsk region, so we brought them to territory of Ukraine, and they work on enterprises which are similar, and it allows us to preserve dynamics and to replace those industrial processes that are lost. And we were the first in Ukraine who in the state sector started to work on electronic tenders. That was our principal position, and Roman worked on that several years ago. And I can tell that we enforced our enterprises to switch to e-governance. The practice and philosophy is from decision as to procurements. People should not be involved. If there is a price proposal, the cheapest, then the cheapest should win. That can be done by the computer, and because of such introduction in 4 months, because we officially used that, we saved 50 million hryvnia. Thank you. Next question from the Serhiy Deputy Director to Ukroboronprom. Good afternoon. I have several questions. The first one, the law of Ukraine on insurance fund of documentation, mobilization, training and mobilization. It provides information and preservation of insurance fund and documentation for defense industry, for certain those enterprises. After annexation of Crimea and war in the east, there are some enterprises that are there, together with documents, design documents. Is there that insurance fund, and how all of that is made back or made in a new way? We have an honest discussion, right? And the principal position of the concern that we're not trying to distort facts. Yes, at present, there is information and there are facts when a technical documentation or designs at some enterprise was lost because of principal position or because of neglection of top management, and police is analyzing the work of such top management which did not take documents out, design documents. At one of our enterprises in Kiev, we set up the 2,356 square meters of the territory, which is guarded, for us to have systemized technical designs from Meteor and from Crimea. A lot of information was brought, so it is there. Some enterprises are responsible to involve people from Luhansk and Donetsk, and they brought with them, they came with design documents. We have our Zirka factory in Shoska, and there are some technological designs how to produce powder. And they use designs from those areas that are occupied. So we cooperated with SBU. There are some facts when they were not able to get out designs, and they burned the documents, and then they sorted it, and they brought some to keep, and some was destroyed, and some was kept as just to show off that everything is fine. Thank you. I'd like to remind we have short presentations, and we will have a discussion after the first round, and they will have for us to fit the time frame. Let's after the first session. After the first session, you will ask questions. Next, I would like to give the floor to a representative from the Ministry of Defense, Chief of the Department of the Developments and Procurements, Alexander Razumkov. Good afternoon. MOD cooperates with the enterprises of defense enterprises, and especially to maintain, to repair weapons, and to update and to develop new, and to procure new. Procurements. I represent the Department of Procurements and Developments and Designs and Procurements, and as to main the Minister of large equipment which is repaired and maintained. The Chief of the General Staff enterprises have not moved to 3 shifts, because there was such a slogan like we will have three shifts. Let's speak about new weapons. That is done in the framework of the state government order, and that is approved by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. As the experience shows, the process of formation and of such characteristics is long, and that's why during previous indexes of state order was approved in the second quarter of the year, and they came into force in the beginning of the third. This year the situation has improved. 2 plan and measures of state defense order. They involved the leadership of state concern Ukroboronprom and heads of enterprises. That's why the main indexes were approved in February this year. In 2014, 2015, there's a breakthrough years. In 2014 for the 1,600 million. This 140 million are invested into the defense industry, and the situation is improved with financing. And the money are disbursed evenly during the year. We receive that not in the end of the year, but we receive them in more or less even disbursements. Of 32 enterprises, defense enterprises, that participate in state contract, and they are responsible. 20 Ukroboronprom, so more than 70% belong to that concern. And so long as part of finance funds directed to those enterprises. But there are some comments. First of all, about us exporters and those enterprises, unfortunately, that were working for many years. They learned to sell cheap, but they didn't learn to purchase, to procure cheap, and didn't learn to import cheap. Questions? I beg your pardon. Absolutely. Despite experience of Alexander Syrotiuk as a representative of the MOD, it seemed to me that we have there should be experts here, and we have to understand issues. If we speak about the Department of Designs and Procurements, you are responsible for procurement modernization, and General Stab is responsible for repairing. So the question is about how enterprises are working on that, and so we hand out equipment, and during the meetings, including in the National Security and Defense Council, we speak about 2014, those enterprises that needed 3 shifts, they now they have 3 shifts, and we informed journalists about that. We had tours for them. If we have our capacities, we have an order for our capacities, and that we will try to fit the schedule, and we'll decide on the shifts. The second issue is about input. If you look at the work of independent Ukraine, that input of weapons, we didn't have that at all until 2014. Those meditations in front of TV, whether it's cheap or expensive, we are speaking about the port when a special exporter worked without the only mediator. So absolute transparent procedure of procurement of products from producers. If we speak about, for example, about producers of Thales French, everybody understands how much that system costs and the price in hryvnia, and how it got into Ukraine and hryvnia. If we say that in the middle there was some fluctuations of the rate, and we had to include it. Excuse me, this is an economic process. It means about profitability about enterprise. I would like to underline that profitability is limited by 5%. So if we buy something for $1 million from foreign producers, and that 1,050,000, and that's the maximum price which can be offered to the end user. End user is the MOD or general staff, and according to that, and the weapons gets to Ukraine.
The third point is kind of remark. Indeed, we did almost impossible when we accepted the state purchase order in July last year. My colleague was very delicate to hash that in November last year we provided all our capacities in order to fulfill this state order. Since Ukroboronprom is not the subject of approval, and you know, all of you know about that, if you take the 30 armored vehicles and we can produce only 20, so what's the difference? So maybe we can do more about the tanks and not the armored vehicles. So decreasing the order, we achieved the indicators when our customers understood our capacities, and yet in July, despite the deficit in the money, we actually did everything possible so that in January we took care of all the mating parts, and I believe that we are going to fill this order this year. Thank you. Well, I would like to, well, indeed, the society, first of all, has to be informed about the procedure of the import purchases or procurement, how it's going on. Ukroboronprom, in fact, actually takes care of the pre-contract work. What does it mean? Principal position of Ukroboronprom to have speaking about the basic items which are necessary for the import, which are critical today. I'm talking about at least providing or securing a big number of the proposals. There are certain kind of products, 10, 20 and more proposals, including possible the manufacturers, the final characteristics, performance data, etc. And the final decision what to purchase and what to procure rests with the Minister of Defense. It's rather transparent process because the payers, the Minister of the Defense is the actually the carrier of all distribution of the money and the resources. And when we have the absolutely transparent presentation, after that only we can pass the final decision based upon the above mentioned. Thank you for your answer. And now we switch over to a discussion on this module. So your questions, please. Microphone, please. We cannot hear the speaker without the microphone. So please, once again, yeah, with microphone. Yevgeny Rakitsky, the co-chairman of Association of the People Volunteers of Ukraine. Last week, during the meeting with Mr. Poroshenko, we voiced the wish to create under the Ukroboronprom some kind of body to comprise the volunteers. How can you visualize this kind of cooperation with this kind of a council? What mechanism we can use to create such an agency or a body? This number one. Number two question, we were talking about the lost opportunities or lost capacities, specifically those which deal with the manufacture and production of cartridges. Do you envisage the possibility of PPP in order to restore the capacities, production capacity in other parts of Ukraine using the high tech or the novel equipment? So thank you very much for your question, but please limit yourself to one question. Thank you for your question. Last Saturday, after the initiatives which was here, we spoke with Yuriy and we discussed the possible forms of organization of interaction with the volunteer organizations in Ukraine, and actually we were talking about the possible formats for our cooperation. Regarding your second question, in fact, I know that today in Ukraine there are some projects, private projects, those which are being drawn up by the private business. You know that to get the license for the production of military products and this branch of industry, and after you have this license, you can be involved in this activity. Ukroboronprom is involved in discussion for the elections in creating the state enterprise or a factory. We had the meeting with Serhiy Vladimirovich several days ago in the Ministry of Economy, and during our meeting with the minister, we discussed the issue specifically of the PPP, private-public partnership, and within the Ministry of Economy has a plans to actualize this form. This is their concept. They visualize in this further development, and in our discussion we understood they were interested in our opinion on this specific issue. I'm sorry, I do suggest that we should give the floor to the experts so to have a real discussion. And in the end of our round table, we'll have the time for the journalists to ask their questions. The floor is given to Yuriy Syrotiuk, People's Deputy of the 7th Convocation, Director of the Center, Ukrainian Studies of the Defense Issues. Good afternoon. I would like to speak up some of my opinion regarding the defense and the industrial complex. I was rather a bitter critic regarding what was going on, specifically taking into consideration the quality of those structures was kind of stalling the disaster in our defense and industrial complex. Was kind of the Donetsk model robbery. We had a model without any kind of coordination or any on the part of any enterprises of this defense complex. They could not feel any kind of order, either national or international. They took the 20% from all the profits from all the enterprises, and their activities resulted that everything was done at the cost of the money of our citizens, because we always wrote off the debts of the Ukroboronprom. In my opinion, it was kind of corruption pad. We had a kind of Ukroboronprom, which was created structure, which actually was the umbrella for different enterprises. There was another Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Industry, and they encouraged to cancel that. And those functions were delegated to Ukroboronprom. Then they renovated as an umbrella or as a shell this ministry, which was nothing at all. There was an attempt on the part of Yanukovych to take it from the public ownership. And we understand that we have war now, and we cannot take any kind of, let's say, abrupt movements. What we can do, inventory of the production of manufactured products in our military industrial complex and how they are adjusted to the conditions of war. Number two, inventory of the ammunition. We know that there are some difficulties in that. We know that we lost a lot of military enterprises which were concentrated in the east of Ukraine. By the way, I addressed the Prime Minister of Ukraine and the then profile minister. They were not evacuated in due time. That was kind of sabotage or negligence, criminal negligence. And I received the official answer from Yatsenyuk and somebody else that we should not evacuate those enterprises. Now, speaking about the overhaul, and I'm sorry, Yuri, we are discussing now the status of the military industrial complex, and you're already talking about the second portion of our second topic or round table. Well, if I may, I would like to continue. Just 1 minute of your time. Next one. We know that our enterprises of Ukroboronprom, they were orientated to export for the sales abroad. And the Minister of Defense raised this question today. There is an important question of the qualitative, high-quality import, because unfortunately the nomenclature, the range of the products produced here doesn't cover all the requirements and needs of the armed forces. And the fifth element, I'm not talking about the plans of what we have analyzed today. The list of the design work and developments for the perspective. There were a lot of state programs which were not financed and nothing was being done. There are some problems which has nothing to do with Ukroboronprom, because unfortunately in Ukraine there is no body or agency which would correlate the activities of all the enterprises of Ukroboronprom. The profile minister was cancelled, and this is a serious problem. They already touched upon the problem regarding the price formation. In this complex, there is a problem of the repair, and while they're discussing how much this repair should cost, and this is being done for a long time now, we have to accelerate that procedure, and also we have to discuss the issue of PPP, because, for example, now all the requirements associated with this war, they have to proceed from the soldiers, not from the officials. the cross lorries which are supplied to our front line. According to the rumors, they are being, let's say, they installed them 6 centimeter, let's say, reinforcement cover and some other issues. I understand this is not the issue to Ukroboronprom because you're a kind of executive here, but how to do it this way that we have a high quality product for the front line. But the key issue to the Ukroboronprom, since I do not see the experience of its existence under the times of Yanukovych, your activities, Ukroboronprom, must be transparent, must take care of the specific audit. Some of the officials under Yanukovych times called me, for example, director of Syrotiuk Enterprise came to me and he said that they forced him to cut the howitzer and make a kind of the debris of that. We also lost the helicopter enterprise in Snizhno because the Russian guys took it away from our country. So we have to think about that, to think how this structure should develop.
They prepared answers for the second session. I suggest that you don't respond to them. Questions were asked. It's not good. Very brief, let me answer with your permission. Yuri, it's a pleasure to meet you. The first time I see you see, yes, you are correct, that first of all we need to do the inventory of capabilities and to divide what those capabilities we can realize here in the country and those capabilities we have to fill through export. What such work is done, and despite of intensive work in the end of the last year, MOD, and we gave a description of our capabilities, and we decided that the rest of the needs will be satisfied through import. As to the import, we have our own strategy. When importing products, one of the key, we select an enterprises according to such a principle. We're interested to get technologies. It's 2-3 years. Building, we negotiate with leading companies all the world, and if MOD stops, chooses one or the other producer from whom they want to buy that equipment, we focus their attention that producer intends to build an enterprises here in Ukraine. That's our strategy. We need to create jobs because we have a big social responsibility for the development of our country. We're socially responsible. We touch the production of ammunition. There is private business, and so we have 4 directions here. We didn't lose the potential which we had, and I mean, we produce power, we have designs, we have people, we moved them here, the enterprise put, and those people continue working and generate tasks and realize them, implement them. As to export and import. Export, as Serhiy told before, we exported what was leftovers. So enterprises were minimally involved in export, and God, they were involved because that preserved the potential of those capacity of those enterprises, and we can build on that. We need a list of designs and inventions, etc. You understand that any industry can develop only depending on the needs and tasks, or on demand. So that's why we work with MOD, with general staff, We ask them to formulate clear tasks, and the main task, how many units and when. Because of that, we can predict the development of our industrial capacity, and we need to plan for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and then we'll develop our capacities, industrial capacity, and the state will plan to finance that process. As to price formation, Serhiy mentioned that in state sector, public sector of economy, that procedure is mentioned in the legislation, but for us to stop abuse, so there is we created a corridor which is called e-tender. If there was some profit for the enterprise and bad people could do the tricks, and but we have e-tenders. One of the factories was headed to do 17 procurements. How would that happen? So they would buy from 17 companies, which are close to some close. No, those 17 procurements in 4 weeks. 2,653 offers were processed, and in the concern we observe in 2014, and the procedure of saving was about on the level of 35%, and now we stabilize, and these mega offers we have, and this month we save 53 million hryvnia, and so it's the average percentage of saving is on the level 29%, so we're working on that. The state PPP. Look, we cannot. Everybody should do his job. We cannot generate tasks all the state. There are ministries for that. There is a ministries who are responsible for strategy of development of enterprises and strategy of development of economy, etc. They should do that. What did we do? We initiated 40 projects we initiated 40 amendments to the legislation. We sent that to the committee in the parliament, and we hope that they will be approved in the parliament in the near future. As to the crowds, it's not correct to comment. I would like to make it clear, because nobody mentioned that. What is military industry of Ukraine? In addition to Ukroboronprom, those Crowns enterprise, for example, doesn't belong. It's a private enterprise. It doesn't belong to Ukroboronprom. They produce equipment, vehicles for defense industry. Antonov, factory of Antonov. Also, it's a military production of Ukraine. Space Agency, Pavlo, KP Yuzhny, all those enterprises that are part of military industry, and some other which belongs to other food factory, which is under Ministry of Interior, etc., etc. And many ministries they have enterprises that are part of military industry of Ukraine. I hope I answered. One more question. Director of military programs from Razumkov Centre. Microphone. How many of those how many defense samples are not produced? About 100. What are the reasons? We don't have enough of funds. We're underfunded. Secondly, for 5 years, they don't fund. The state doesn't fund program to train, to prepare production and special technologies. Ministry of Economic Development is responsible for that. For 5 years, there is no CAPEC was planned for that. As a result, sound metric set of intelligence that was developed at the state enterprises in Odessa, which is much better than what we have now. In other armed forces, it was not put on production. I don't know whom to ask the question. Sarmat, did they participate in tender procedures? Procurements of Sarmat. What do you mean by tender procedures? I don't know who is responsible for Sarmat, for procurement of Sarmat that was applied to me. We don't. There is a missile Sarmat, not a vehicle. If there is a discussion, use microphones. Ministry of Defense, MOD, buys samples to test them. And the order of the head of general staff, just to test what it can do in other field conditions. In the field, we don't have it. I would like to sympathize to Ukroboronprom because they started to do the work which is impossible to pick up because the systems Serhiy mentioned, it was built a long time before Yanukovych. Yanukovych just privatized it. But if Serhiy remembers, in 2005, you remember, when there was a decree of Yushchenko to have the first review of defense industry, there was an agreement to have an audit of defense enterprise together with directors from NATO countries, and so that decision was not put into practice. So what they do now is thank you very much. We pick up those developments that are financed by the state. Dozor, for example. For 5 years, it was there was the design documents. Nobody financed the production, and even there were no samples for a sample for test. In a very short time, in 3 months, we produced that vehicle as a test sample in March. We gave it to a military man, and we financed that production of that sample from our own funds, and we started we built a line already, in other words, because of our initiative. That's what we do. The same with military modules, etc. And when we speak about imported samples, defense samples, we are trying to have quite a transparent process. In the state, in our company, we have one of European companies. We agree with that European company or American company. We invite the representatives of all the structures, MOD, National Guards, special units. Those companies make a presentation of their equipment, inform us about price, etc., etc. The task of all whom we invite to confirm that they are interested to get that weapons, and we are trying to make those things transparently. But the majority of companies that work with MOD, they have their offices, so that process is quite transparent. Thank you. We start the second session of our roundtable, and the topic is directions to reform military production. I give the floor to Yuriy Alexandrovich Yuriy Pashchenko. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to inform you that I was authorized by the government, and there was there's a working group. I want to tell you it must develop the concept to reform and develop military production by 2020, and also there must be a program. The working group involves, in addition to enterprises and its representatives, Ukroboronprom and enterprises of space industry and aircraft industry, and Ukraine Science and National Academy of Sciences and its units and institutions. Such work is over. At present, the concept is ready. It was worked out, and this week it will be handed to the Ministry of Economy. And the program is in the final stage, and it will take a couple of days. And so it is updated daily. We receive from enterprises from all different companies of Ukraine proposals to those 12 paragraphs of that program. Very soon we will finish it, and we will send it to the Ministry of Economy, and then it will go to. It will be worked on. Maybe they will publish it. So that work. Ukroboronprom has almost finished that work. Thank you. Thank you. Please, questions, experts. Do you have questions to this? Tell me, please. You developed the program to develop until 2020. Under conditions when we don't know what will be. We don't have a program to develop military equipment. We don't have in general, but the program of defense sector development. On the basis of what are you doing your program? What are the principles? We have some data. We cannot say that it's absolute truth, but we have some data. And MOD and the general staff have provided some data for us, and they will use that as reference and nothing else. As to other parts of the program, based on that, we can prognose. We do that, and we see the situation in Ukrainian armed forces. We know the situation, and we can focus exports, military export. So we cannot say that that program is built on nothing. No, it will be quite true and quite realistic.
Thank you. Your questions, please. Mykola Sungurovskyi. I have the following question. Do you seriously believe that we have the military industrial complex or defense industrial complex in Ukraine? I can say that Ukraine has the production capacities for the ammunition and military equipment. They have something which can ensure its mostly qualitative execution. We have some experience in export of these products, and moreover, we are expecting the middle term perspective. Let's say middle term. Procurement orders, which will allow us to improve the level of the production and the quality and quantity of this production. The availability of the defense industrial complex is not just an acronym. This is kind of reference to the availability of some complexes. Such complexes we have only in China and in Russia. And we used to have in the USSR. We do not have. We have kind of the totality of the production capacities which are dealing with this issue. Why I'm talking about that? Because we are talking now about the management, the system management of such complexes. So my question is, if there is a concept already in place, what do you believe will be the system of management of the defense or the industrial complex or this defense industry? You know, it must, first of all, it must be some state program of reform and development of the defensive industrial complex. And this is a lengthy, durable program which makes provision for the existence till the year 2020. And this program has to be approved by the resolution of cabinet ministers of Ukraine. In this case, maybe to some extent your remarks are justified, because the respective ministry and departments, when they start to study this concept, they will make their let's say modifications or corrections. And I believe that our discussion around this table will be a signal to create the full-fledged defensive industrial complex, because for its creation we need the potentialities of all the enterprises we mentioned here for the military industry of Ukraine. And we hope this will be the case. I believe under the situation, available situation, we could speak about that you can draw up a realistic plan for the current period of time. You know, the orders and your plans, and that's it. As for the plan for development of the defense industrial complex, you don't have neither authorities nor the grounds. Most likely, this is the task for the whole country in the Verkhovna Rada, which actually takes care of the legislative acts, and those who form the military technical policy in the cabinet ministers, which takes care of drawing up all those programs, etc. Thank you. I have a question to Yuriy. You analyzed already, have you analyzed already this sphere? In your opinion, what percentage of the needs of different of the Minister of Defense or other force structures can cover? What we can maybe not modernize, partial or repair, and what is the percentage we can today say that we cannot do that? In 2 or 3 years we will not be able to do that, and we have to import some of this equipment or technology. And can you outline at least some of the let's say the concept of that program, outlines of the program? You said that 0.8% of the GDP was allocated for the defense, so we have to survive under the stagnation. So what is your attitude that at the time of the complete rearmament of the armed forces of Ukraine, this will not, because all our neighboring countries have this situation one step, at least one category higher. So what kind of percentage, maybe minimum 3-5% of the GDP had to be allocated, that when you be aware that depending on the situation in the Ukrainian economy, you have a certain amount of money which you can use for this purpose. I'll start answering you, Yuriy Alexandrovich will continue. At the very beginning, when I provided the answer to one of the questions, I said that most important is the needs and requirements. Today, practically, hypothetically formulated needs of the Minister of Defense, we can meet about 90% of the potential in some perspective in the, let's say, in the long-term or the short-term perspective. And our colleagues from the Ministry of Defense mentioned that there are some developments which are rather efficient. The only thing that the state did not allocate the money to put those to this serial or the mass production. And there are some of the productions or the, let's say, developments which will be implemented in the near future, etc., etc. They are formulated and they are formed hypothetically, and we need practical from those. What I'm talking about, a certain number of the products for 1 year, for 2 years, for the 3-year period, 4-year period, etc., etc. We understand that over the lengthy period, for a long time, till this day, our army was not rearmed, so to say, and no money was allocated, and there were no skilled personnel who can operate this technology, this equipment. This is a comprehensive task for the state to develop or draft the program for training those people who are going to operate this equipment. B, we have to formulate specifically the requirements of the industry for a long enough period of time. And there is an opportunity or possibility. I would like to give you a simple example, which I cite very often. There is some kind of ultra-modern factory, for example, aviation factory, aircraft building factory. I give us a very graphic example. Super modern equipment and super modern enterprise. So I had to be understood incorrectly, but if we place it somewhere in an African continent, I'm not talking about some specific country, but I would say in the country with underdeveloped system of education, etc., etc. Is there any possibility for the function of such factory in such country? Perhaps not, because they do not have a specific higher education establishment or whatever. If you locate this enterprise closer to our country, maybe they do not have such possibilities. When we look at this in Ukraine, when they say that Ukraine lost its potentialities, it's not true. We have the huge potential. We have the people who can manage those enterprises, who can work in those enterprises, who could ensure a very good synergy, production synergy. We have to formulate clearly the needs and requirements, not for the week or months or half a year or the 1 year, at least 5-year plan for those requirements. And then the defense industry of Ukraine will satisfy, will meet most of the requirements that we have today in this country. Just to echo, we did not calculate the percentage. Maybe better to speak about the range of products. If we're talking about the tanks, we can meet the requirements in the majority of the. As for the artillery guns, we do not produce those, and I can responsibly tell you that Ukraine never did that. But we are talking about, we can contemplate in this possibility, entertain this possibility, and I believe in the near future we'll be able to produce the artillery guns. If you're talking about the gauge or caliber 30, we do produce it now. Regarding ammunition, guided ammunition, we have been producing that and continue to produce those, manufacture those. Guided ammunition we do not produce here. If we are talking about the capacities, let's be honest, we lost those capacities about 18 or 15 years ago. This enterprise stopped to manufacture cartridges. We actually we are dealing with scrap metal now. I'm not going to offend anybody. Regarding aviation, unmanned aviation, transport aviation, Ukraine has to manufacture those products, and not only for our own needs, but for the export as well. If we stop doing that, we are going to lose one of the most developed sphere of production here. As for the unmanned, we never produce those, and we do not envisage the need to start the large-scale production of those. It would be enough to import something. As for the radars, we can do that. As for the shipbuilding, we almost lost that, but we have to renovate those so far as we have something to renovate. And the key issue here, maybe the missile or rocket industry, we not only capable to provide ICBM, we are capable to produce or manufacture the entire aircraft defense. This is a country which was producing the strategic missiles. They can take care of the tactical missiles to create, to manufacture, and make them competitive. And this is a shame that we do not have such orders. I'm talking about the missiles and rocket complexes, both of those. I can provide you more detailed information if you need, if you have this requirement as the one of the managers of the Pivdeny enterprise. Speaking about the rocket complexes, can we do something about that? We can consider only what we have the orders for which, because being a public concern, to create something to our own taste is some kind of which cannot be done. Whatever money we have, we spend that money for the state orders. What I would like to draw attention to now, if you take 1 year period as a basis, what was happening? What was the picture 1 year back? Was the coordination of the schedule of our work with the Ministry of Defense? We have to, for example, today 500, tomorrow it's 700 or 800, and the day after tomorrow 1200, for example. We didn't have kind of information exchange even with the Minister of Defense. We didn't have volunteer movement. What volunteers did? With their initiative, they replaced in some issues the state. Since the strategy in this country and the program had to be determined by the state proper, what kind of missiles or tanks or rocket complexes, depend on the task we have to take care of. This is the basis for the proposals. And if we are talking about the institutions, this has to be dealt with by the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Economy, but they do not have neither plans or deep understanding or deep going in-depth understanding, because we are talking about the creation of concept. If we're talking about Ukroboronprom, there is no profile deputy prime minister in the government. We do not have the structure which can shoulder the task of coordination of the order. They set the task and we do not even need something in writing. For example, we get in the we need 150 tanks, and in the morning we have the letter stating 20, or on the vice versa 100. We had to some extent to take a revolutionary development. You would take our doctrine, where we have the threats according to our military doctrine, from the West, right? And all the enterprises, just give a thought to that. Well, if you intensively read that, the threat is still from the West. In Kharkov, Donetsk, that's why they are the venue for the concentration of our military enterprises. In the manufacture of the armor, they remain in the territory which is occupied today, because that was the doctrine, the outdated doctrine. Today we are changing this doctrine. So I would like to draw attention of those present here today that we do not claim to the truth in the first instance. We claim to draw attention of the country and the Minister of Defense to do something. We have to work with the Deputy Corps. And for the first time ever, 1 month ago, we had a report about our activities based on the results of 2013, item by item, issue by issue, and we have a normal understanding with the profile committee now, which today assists us in dealing with these outstanding issues. For example, our enterprises twice paid the VAT. Is it normal? We say that we spend a lot of money for import, but what's happening? When we work under the sale and purchase contract,
our enterprises calculate VAT. We ask abroad, and we buy missiles set to the country, and also they calculate the VAT. 40% from the cost of that item comes back to the set. It's not normal. Inside of the budget, which has holes, so we had an initiative, and there was the first hearing, and there's information that deputies support the initiative to take that second VAT, which should not exist. And We take as basis if land tax factory of Malta should pay 3.4 million to the state budget. Where do they will take that money if there is no order? They go in the debts, and that systemically that enterprise all the time in debts. We had a meeting with the representative, so a tax inspection. It's like fiscal service, it is called. So there's a working group, and we're trying to find solutions. How, during special times, how can we solve these issues? And these are little. That's what the program should include. If all necessary institutions are involved, and we understand in the Ministry of Defense, they have some intellectual school and volunteers. What happened? We had a BTR because Romanov created a working group which went to ATO and communicated with military men. We received more than 900 corrections to designs to our BTR. If equipment for during 6 months, if there is 900 improvements, how could it develop? How was it developed? Look, in which army has armor like us in the water? Heavy armored vehicle, middle and light. That's three items, three culture of spare parts, three culture of maintenance and production. We have BTR 70, BTR 80, BTR 3, BTR 4, BTR. So about 35 units is not normal. That's why not only 3 shifts. The factories work in 5 shifts, but we don't produce a T-72 tank. In 2014, but we'll have to produce it in 2015. Now, tank B80, we needed to develop it. So we think about systemic approach. We should develop a program and also just our actions for that program. But the concept is no. We discuss it. If we are wrong in something, okay, let's have a discussion and correct mistakes. And it's great that we have such a round table. We can hear each other and we can look at the situation from different sides. Thank you very much. Your opinion about reforms in the military production, military industry. First of all, it's great that the Ukroboronprom has such an initiative and started developments. Glory to them. But when they say that we developed the concept and program, maybe there will be a public. It's not clear to me how. For whom are you working? How could you? How? It should not go anywhere. It should not leave your company if it is not discussed. Because that's about the destiny of the country, not the destiny of Ukroboronprom. We are open, absolutely. Improvement of that concept, that should be done by the Cabinet of Ministers after it goes through all the ministries and agencies. It will be consolidated decision at the Cabinet of Ministers. That's why, as Yuriy told, we did a lot of work. And we did SWOT analysis of all of the situation, possible developments, and we don't claim that we are right. We suggest to have a basis, something to start with, and we hope the more suggestions, rational suggestions that will include, and the more discussion will be, because it's a serious document. I will be thankful to all who will participate in that work. What do I say about it? Because that's a trend. So you will send it to the Cabinet of Ministers. Cabinet of Ministers what will they do? They will take things they need and they will include into the program, and that's it. And then there will be the program you will have to implement. But if things are not agreed are there, well, you are right. The concept, it's a vision of future results for what the program is developed. That's a result of a program. That's a final result of the program. That's it. Step 15 we have to climb to when we're standing on the first one. The program means that technologies, how to achieve that conceptual vision. And if we don't have it, how can we build the program? Believe me, our team completely agrees with you. We are interested in prospects. Working today, we're trying to build efficient. We are trying to work efficiently, and in the MOD and volunteers, they know the work we do. Strategy, but strategic. I don't criticize you. I invite you for cooperation. Mykola, it's not a question, it's a report. Let me finish. Development of the concepts and programs, that's a general task. There should be general vision, and there should be prospects, and without intellectual potential of volunteers, of organizations. Serhiy is here. We represent such an organization. We're working on those issues for many years, and we need efforts, general efforts, and if you take it just to cabinet ministers, there will be a negative effect. Whatever that happens, I'm 100% sure. That's why I ask you about management of military industry. If we don't see the system, it's the end. We won't do anything. So, correct question: how? If you don't have data, what kind of armed forces will we have? What kind of weapons will we have? Special operation forces need special weapons. What about decentralization of the budget relations? How? What about tax reform? How, without all of them, we can build some concept of separate industry? What's your suggestion? Concrete directions of reforms. When you decide whether we work on according to the markets, whether we use the old command system. If we work according to the market, then we have to decentralize it. So the system of management is divided into 3 levels: administrative, command, contract, and indicative. Command is the top level of the state, and this is those ministries and agencies, and where there is no other system of management, and developing those tasks for ministers, presidents, etc. With enterprise, we have to work on contract basis. Indicative, which for all the rest, subcontractors, etc., for whom the task is a landmark and nothing else. That's a market mechanism, and that will become clear what the system of management is there. Serhiy. That's the organization on the basis of which they have expert council, and including on military industry issues, and how to manage. So we need to manage military industry good. But when you ask them what does it mean? Does it mean to run enterprises? How do you understand manage enterprises? To give tasks, yes. To control implementation of those tasks, yes. And that's on 0 level, because there is no system of reception of products in the end. Thank you. We've heard your opinion. Serhiy, just in one word, we will listen, and quite a rational suggestion. And just because of correctness, we will not give it to the Minister of Economic Development. And we raised this issue, and I believe that this document is not closed, it's open. And we'll be thankful for your suggestions, and we will attach those your suggestions. It's not a secret document. We will hand it to many of those who are present here for those suggestions you voiced out, or maybe you will have suggestions because of this discussion. We will like to keep your suggestions in the concept. Here's already the benefit of this communication and of this meeting. Believe me, the team of Ukroboronprom, a team of people who work for results, and we would like to ensure we would like to work for results. Otherwise, we cannot build Ukraine as a country. That's what we should strive for, and that's what we're doing. Now, let's move to questions. You had a question. A question to all. The main topic formation and introduction. Military policy is the most important. What is the body which develops military policy? That is done by MOD. But MOD cannot develop a policy because MOD was built on the basis of Soviet management structures, and de facto it's a part of military management. Institutional capability to develop a policy doesn't have. Even as to weapons, MOD is just a contractor. They don't decide on development of weapons and decide on legislation, and we don't see any initiative from MOD in that field. Very clear. Because military policy, so it is not done in our country. I would like to read requirements to military policy and its development, the law of Ukraine on basics of national security. To formulate and develop a technical policy is absent, and none of the paragraphs say that the strategy of national security of Ukraine is from 2012 is not mentioned. Strategy of national security of Ukraine, that's one of the projects is not mentioned. Military document, that is the first document which defines the goal and directions of military technical policy. The law of Ukraine on defense. In that law and part, basic principles of defense and preparation of the state, Article 3, preparation of the state to defense. It says that one of the tasks of preparation of the state to defense is military policy development. But in the next part, it clearly says powers of state power bodies and main functions and tasks are not outlined, are not defined. And who is responsible for formation of military policy, technical policy of the law of Ukraine on forces of Ukraine again. It doesn't have a notion of VDP as a component. Regulation of the Ministry of Defense, as you correct, it says clearly the MOD responsible for implementation of policy in defense sector. The only structural unit which is able to develop military technical policy, that is system of official views and legislation, powers of development, production, and development of military equipment in order to provide armed forces of Ukraine with modern city. This is a report or a question? A question. To whom? This is the question. We have a problem that military technical policy, there is only one unit that could do that, but it doesn't do that because it doesn't belong to MOD or to general staff. What kind of proposals could you give? Who can formulate a military technical policy? To formulate military technical policy, we need to know operational the state of equipment, results of using it, needs, and how it should develop. And the Council of National Security should have it. And that information is centralized and it's belongs to armed forces. That's where they develop the state order on defense. And what did it help? We have the chief of armed forces. What are his powers? I was in. He doesn't have any powers, and there's a deputy minister on technical support. But to bring the chief and with deputy minister, that's it's Ukroboronprom, and to send it will take me 2 or 3 weeks. It's a realistic. I apologize. It's a very complicated issue. We will not finish it during this roundtable. Let's take it for the next one. But in general, very good issue. Military technical policy. It's not clear who is planning that. Military technical policy in defense industry. That includes tax issues and storage, assets, remnants. We don't have an official MOD. Last year, also, there was a suggestion to improve. Thank you. Because we have the agenda, I suggest that we will summarize briefly our roundtable, and then for half an hour, we will have half an hour to communicate with the audience. I will try to summarize, though there were a lot of things said. All the reports were very interesting, and we have to analyze that full on, just to make conclusions, good conclusions. But to the state of military industry during the independence is under the conditions of absence of state order, defense order. This satisfied needs on the international markets, and it was military production was working on producing Soviet equipment and new technologies and innovations. We did not observe that. Such approaches to military industry destroyed it. It was not updated, upgraded, and they became bankrupted and dismissed people. In 2014, we received additional problems. 13 enterprises were under occupied territory in Crimea, and some enterprises were destroyed in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. But when the state started to finance it in 2015, started to finance defense needs, and the Ukroboronprom, they succeeded to extend production, but the needs of armed forces are much higher than the capacity of the concern. Military industry enterprises that are not in Ukroboron, they underfunded, and for private enterprises for defense, they don't have very good conditions, beneficial conditions for their function. The main problems of defense industry. We need to pay attention to absence of in the legislation or Ukraine definition of military industry structure, functioning, state regulation of its activity. Formation of state policy on military technical field that is put on Ministry of Defense, but it doesn't have, it cannot develop the policy, and it's only the one who gives orders for military equipment and weapons. Ukraine inherited from the Soviet Union not only enterprises and staff of those enterprises, also we inherited the structure, management, and principles of function of military industry. That's why Ukrainian industry, military industry, is different from Western countries. And that activity is regulated by the state, by Kirill to organize is done by investments, high-tech technologies and market tools. The situation can be described as absence of the closed cycle production, and the majority of samples, especially complicated weapons and equipment, they become older, assets become older, and difference, no relations between producers and science institutes. In many cases, innovative products, innovations are stopped, and they don't bring it to the production line. As to the first steps to reform military production, we started with the development of the policy of national security and defense, where there should be strategic planning on the state, a strategic and defense planning. We should develop the state program to build weapons and equipment, and there should be a state order for that, and under the condition that these tasks are part of the work of Parliament, Cabinet Ministers and Defense and Security Council, then there could be the real program how to reform military industry of Ukraine. Because, as we told, the initiative is very good of Ukroboronprom. Somebody should initiate that work in the country, but they don't have information, they don't have reasons, they don't have basis to do that on alone. The second set, model of function of military industry, and then we could develop programs for them. And there was the model of state governance, function of the military industry, and the state will have the function of formation and coordination of military technical policy development agreement and the general administration of the programs of development of and licenses and export control. All the rest should be regulated by the market and the defense order. The third step for the development of military industry is we needed to develop legislation base for this economic relations, and we invited a representative from the Ministry of Economic Development, but unfortunately he was not able to come. And I hope that they will give us some information for us to work on that. Without if we don't have positive, if we don't have that, positive results are not expected. There must be conditions to include market tools, new tech, experience of other countries, how to organize the work of military industry, and also there should be an independent audit of military industry of Ukraine. That's what we just discussed. I would like to thank all participants of the roundtable for very good work. I hope that we prepare some detailed documents on the basis of this discussion, and we suggest to consider it during the meeting, the document which will allow us to move on with reforms of military industry of Ukraine. Now we move to questions from our guests. Expert of RP, National Security Group representative. It's a question to you, Serhiy. Tell me, please, representatives from Defense, MOD gave us the numbers of 5,136 million of state order and participation in that order 20 enterprises from Ukroboronprom. I would like you to confirm or confirm that those numbers, if possible or not? And what about financing? What about funding, which is approved? Do you get 100% of the planned funding, at least for this year? Thank you. I don't want to interfere with my colleague, and there was a foreign delegation, and he had to leave, and he sent a message that was very interesting. If we speak about a state order, defense order, that document is classified, it's very difficult to comment it. We should speak about the system of funding for 2015. It's unique. Why? Because those funds from the state general, they give the two system groups money from state budget to general fund, and the second group is money for state guarantees. And the point of state guarantees means that our enterprise for defense order, they ask a state bank, and they get a loan, and according to conditions that loan, and put some percentage at some interest to solve cost of this. It's a complication because growth expenditures for the defense 3 times. We suggested a proportional system. We understand that the payment, salary, food, energy, that should be covered by 100%. All the other expenditures, like to make uniform, etc., they should be proportional for cash and not cash. If there is a profitability of state 25%, if it go on, the cheapest loan is at 22, 23%. We understand that for 23%, we will produce less of equipment. There will be no more money. As to for funding, we had a unique situation in 2014 with common efforts, and with Ukroboronprom, we made prepayment to provide us abroad for us not to have rate difference, and so we have supplies for March, April until the end of the year, because what is imported, we call it a critical import, because we import what was not produced and will not be produced in the near future. Everything is prepaid, so they need to produce certain sets of spare parts for Ukraine. As to prepayments now, there was advance payments. There was a certain corridor, how much the MOD could finance. There was a meeting in the National Security Council that schedule of expenditure from December was moved, and today at 9 o'clock, I had a meeting with the minister, and according to those contracts, and for repair and production, we have a schedule. By April 15, we will send contracts, and in a week after contracts, we must have advance money for that work. Our factories, according to those, the money we were able to accumulate in 2014, and they do their work. The equipment, BTR, BMP, and tanks are renovated, they are repaired, but in the money that were from the enterprise. So we don't see that we do not plan disruption, but there could be problems with funding when how to use those state guarantees, because even there is no understanding with the Ministry of Economy on that issue. One more. As to 20 enterprise, for you not to be dismissed, to produce one armored vehicle, we have 50 enterprises are working. As to repair, just to repair a tank and stabilizer, for example. So 3 or 10, more than 10 enterprises participate in producing a tank. So, more questions? Explain profit from export for 2014 in Ukroboronprom. T-72 for National Guard's repair production. What's there? We don't have a T-72. As to export or import, you are interested? Money we received from export. It's very difficult to calculate. Why? Because it was stopped. Everybody understands. And even those positions that aren't important for our army, we were not supplying that. If we speak, it's in 2015, there's clear understanding. And the Council National Security played a final role. Last November, we described them our capacity, and there are some positions. For example, what can be produced? An enterprise can produce 500 units, and they need 200 to solve all tasks. And 3,000 is a profit. We ask the armed forces to, after we produce 200, and let us sell 300 for export. And there are some things that are just to us. We take heavy armored vehicles. There is an issue of growing of production. We do that systemically. But the needs are very high. There's no even a question about a systemic expert. But for example, speculations around a plot tank. We had a discussion around that. It seems to me that a tank which costs $5 million will be more profitable to sell it to abroad, to renovate equipment. So, for import, we have also sent because rate in killed us, and we paid additional VAT, and it's about 64 million from import. We had losses. As to export, we don't have any statistics. If you need, we will give you prepare that information for you. And for our colleagues to understand what it's about, yes, Ukraine was always built to 10, and during the last, we were the 6th in the world as to weapons. When we have complication with export, we have to understand the markets on which we competed, and those are markets where our main opponent was Russia. That's why we speak about the necessity of export for the state, and that's, the issue is not only of refilling the budget, but it's the issue of the market. We should not lose the contracts we had. We were able, because of personal position of the leadership of the state and of Ukroboronprom, we postponed without fines, without sanctions. That's a normal process. But there were facts, for example, at Malaysia factory, prepayments for foreign contracts were stolen. Now we have to refill that money to get some capacity. We speak about the development now. We mean two niches. Niche where there is equipment from old Soviet times, and a niche which is about the production of new units of equipment like Dozor. We have it. We have. There is a systemic demand from abroad. If that's the position of the state, and then we can export, and we can get additional funds to the country.
There was another question. As regards tank T-72, yes, indeed, it's not on the Ukrainian army. T-64 is a basic tank. With such an initiative, we addressed the Minister of Defense, if you're talking about this specifically. As regards the repair of several units, yeah, that's true. but I have nothing to comment if we are talking about renovation of 4 or 5 tanks. But we came up with another initiative. Actually, doesn't nobody can see any usefulness here. T-72, T-80, to manufacture those tanks without the base of their maintenance or the spare parts. This is absolutely wrong decision. This is my personal opinion. But we came up with a rather good initiative. We had about 300 tanks of not a bad category. They're absolutely operational, and maybe we can bring them to the status T91, like in Poland. With some of the representatives of Minister of Defense, we visited Poland. We visited the shooting range, and everybody was happy to what we saw. So we came up with a proposition to renovate about 100 tanks of this type, T-91, to bring them to the NATO standards and to put it in as the basic tanks for our army. As for the spare parts, etc., mating parts, we can purchase those from our neighboring countries, and we can still leave a certain quantity of those tanks, take in consideration a big requirement for demand for the armored equipment. This is not a bad solution. Unfortunately, we are run out of time, official time, so next question, please. Evgeny Nazarenko, 2+2. I have the question to the Ukroboronprom. Ukroboronprom. There was some kind of embargo of the supply of the engines or motors. Do we still have the same problem, or we have the capacities in Ukraine to actually to manufacture engines and motors for our equipment? There is no prohibition of this kind. We started the mass-scale production. The first batch of those engines have been already manufactured. We do not visualize today, at least, regarding some, let's say, problems with the supply of those engines. There are some other countries, in addition to Germany, who proposed us the same units, and we are working rather successful on this issue regarding the possibility of using those engines in the armored vehicles. The second question of yours regarding the possibility of manufacturing the engines for the Dazor equipment or machine. We do not have, and never had such a possibility in Ukraine. As for other armored vehicles, we provide the engines. The tanks. As for the armored vehicles, the need for the armored vehicles, they actually exceed our opportunities and potentialities. The production manufacture was eliminated, or let's say liquidated in Kharkov, and today we are working hard to renovate this status, but this requires some time, and also speaking requires the need to the engine per se, because today it's not really modern engine. There is such a project which is called Slobodan engine, which will actually allow us to open the production lines both for the civil and the military. Now in lab in making this happen. Thanks a lot to everybody who participated in our round table in the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. If you wish, you can continue your communication with the speakers outside.